Clinical trials have to start in normally healthy volunteers. Not necessarily. The purpose of the phase 1 clinical trial is safety. So it doesn't matter whether you do it in normal healthies or if you do it in your patient populations. Typically, people use the normal healthies because they're faster to recruit. And in addition, because it's a more, theoretically speaking, a more homogeneous population, they're not sick, so you don't have all those added complications. Your data comes out much cleaner because you don't have that inter-patient variability that you would have with patients. Below is just a little graphic to show that because if you use patients, your recruitment time is so much longer, even though your dosing and your PK analyses are the same, your study is going to end up taking a lot longer. There are some indications that do not use healthy volunteers, just from more like a compassionate use, I think, is oncology, gene therapy, and cell therapies.
Vaccines, no, they go to healthies.
They go to healthies, yeah. We talked. But so in those particular cases, you do not need to use normal healthies. Only
remember, like a lot of oncology products are cytotoxic. Right? So you don't want to give a cytotoxic to a healthy individual. No, you want to, again, you're always weighing that risk versus benefit. So in this case, you want to go into your patient populations directly. As everybody knows, oncology studies are extremely long, and that's part of the reason why. I was told that the clinical study would be about $25,000 per patient. So I was planning to raise about $500,000 and run my study. And so, I mean, fireworks are going off in my head because I can't tell you how many times I hear somebody give me a per patient cost for a clinical study, and it is so wildly inaccurate and so misleading that it doesn't help at all. So I say check the assumptions, be cynical. So if somebody tells you that, you just frankly do not trust anything they say until you actually work through with them and figure out what it's going to be. And so here's the story with clinical trials. There's a number of fixed costs that are not going to change, okay? And those are often things like the protocol writing, the clinical monitoring, all the things that the CRO does, like the data management, those are all fixed. Every clinical trial has data management. It might change a little bit on a per patient basis, but not so much. There's the regulatory component and the drug supply component. Those are fixed costs. Then there's the cost per duration. So if a study you thought it was going to be 10 months and it turns out to be 22 months, you're going to have project management costs that go up based on that. So there's a duration-based cost, and then there's the cost per patient, which, here's the issue, is many times our lovely small biotechs will go talk to an investigator or a KOL, and they're super excited about the therapeutic, and they say, I can run your trial for like $25,000 a patient. And then they go get excited about this. This is what they're talking about across the entire clinical trial, is this little section across all the other things that you need to do. And so they're great. I'm glad the KOLs are excited, but we need to step back and understand all the costs. And so here's Michelle's rule of thumb on how to estimate trial costs, just to give yourself either an idea of how much something might cost or to do a gut check when you actually go through the full budgeting process. We'll just look at an example of a small, easy outpatient study, the top example. If you're doing an easy study where all your patients are outpatient, they're getting pretty easy endpoints that are either sort of patient-reported outcomes or something like that, it's not going to be that expensive to run that study. The actual work to do at the site is pretty limited, actually. They're going to have to come in for a couple visits, talk to their doc. So, it's not unreasonable to say it's going to be $25,000 per patient. And then what you do is you multiply by the number of patients and then again by 2.5. So you do the 500K, and then you take the 500K and you multiply that by 2.5 to cover all the other things that I had in that slide, except for drug supply, which is on its own. But and that gives you sort of a working idea of how much that study might cost to run it. And so generally speaking, our orphan and our onc studies, the ones that I've been running lately are averaging $50,000 a patient. And I know I have folks that are like, oh my God, I've never run a study that much. It's just what it is these days. I mean, I have lots of CEOs that go into ballistic mode on that. Have you guys heard this before about studies, whether it's clinical or any R&D in Australia versus Canada? this is pretty cool, actually. Both of these countries, and there might be more countries, these are just the ones that I know about and have more experience with, particularly Australia. In Australia, you can get and I'm not kidding, I've done this, a 40 to a 45% rebate on all R&D. Okay, anything having to do with research and development, including clinical trials, drug supply, all that stuff. You can get a huge rebate. It's available to Australian subsidiaries, which means that you can have home base here and then open up a subsidiary over there and apply for these rebates. So I've got a company, we've been doing this for maybe almost 2 years at this point, where we set up a subsidiary in Australia. We've kind of worked this out. We found some fantastic vendors that we're working with down there, and we've been running all of our phase 1 studies. They would cost over $1 million here. Clearly, we're spending $600,000. And so over the 3 studies that we've been running, we've now saved $1.4 million, $1.2 million that we're now applying to the next study. So just remember that this is a rebate, and so you still have to pay the money before you get it back. So you do have to have enough finances to be able to handle your runway perspective. It's not just a full discount, but it works, and it works well. And sometimes you have to make some trips to Australia, but it could be worse. They have a great system down there, and it works quite well. That's that. Now, Canada also has a rebate program for research and development. On one of my other slides, I have where you go. Here's the thing, and I've been trying to get a little more detail around this to get a full definition, but it has to be a Canadian-controlled private corporation. I believe that means you essentially have to be headquartered in Canada to apply and get the truly up to 35% back there. I think there's ways that you can get maybe 14% back or 15% back, but you actually have to set up your headquarters in Canada to get those kinds of rebates. So I have a couple Canadian companies I work with who routinely get all these rebates because they're based there. But I have not been successful with many of my US-based companies taking advantage of this program very well. Australia, yes, because you can have sort of 2 sites. You can still get your US SBIR grants. You can get US fund money, but you can take advantage of the Australian thing. I think Canada, you actually have to be a Canadian company. We can talk about this later if you guys have any questions about it. Australia has a great regulatory environment. It's very easy to work through. Canada's regulatory environment similar to ours. It's not too different. So consider those Australia and Canada options if they make sense to you. You can do pretty well on that. So people still think you can do trials cheaper and faster in Europe. So remember, that was maybe 20 years ago. Europe was much cheaper than the US. It's not necessarily the case anymore. So what I did is I built out, the CTA is clinical trial agreements. I built out the timelines for the approval timelines, which is essentially the same thing as an IND. How long does it take? In the US, it takes 30 days, plus your IRB. So these are the US IND plus however long it takes for an IRB to approve. Western Europe, they have pretty good systems in place, Spain and particularly UK, France, to get things through. But you can see they're going to be essentially the same amount of money. So where you can get them financial savings is if you move into Eastern Europe. But as you can see, nothing is for free. Because with Eastern Europe, many of the countries have very, very, very long time, China's the same way, to get into your trial. And so you can see what the lead time is for that. So you have to weigh how much does time cost. So the only avenues, and here's where I see the discrepancies, Israel and Georgia, they actually have pretty short timelines relatively. If all the moons align and things sync up, you can get into Georgia really fast. The issue is, look at these countries, Israel, Georgia, they're like teeny tiny countries. You not necessarily want to go to those countries and do all your monitoring. You can find CROs that will help you, but they don't have a ton of patients. So in the win category, there's not an easy win. There's always a gray zone in between. So I would say this is not always the case, that you're going to save money because you might spend more time.